We are going to be starting in lesson 27-2, which is factoring when I have an ax squared, when I have a number in front of the x squared or m squared or whatever. So what we're going to look at is a few examples first, and you can just write these down on a piece of paper. So we're going to check to see if there's any common factors, also called a GCF, that we could pull out first before we factor. So if I look at this, 3, 21, and 30, 3 is the smallest number, so that's where I'm going to start. And 3 goes into 21, and 3 goes into 30. So I'm going to factor out or pull out a 3, and they don't all share a v, so I'm going to leave it. Remember, we divide the numbers. So 21 divided by 3 is 7. And then 30 divided by 3 is 10. And now we are going to keep going just like we've done factoring before up until this point. So we're looking for two numbers that multiply to get 10 and add to get that -7. I'm going to leave the 3 out in front. 2 and 5 multiply to get 10. But then I need to make these both negative so that they add to equal a -7. So we're going to write our answers as v minus 2 and v minus 5. And don't forget that that 3, that GCF, needs to be out in front. Okay, again, I'm going to look at these and see if they have a GCF in common first. So 2, 22, and 60. I see that the smallest of these three numbers is 2. So I'm going to pull out a 2 because 22 and 60 are both divisible by 2. But then I also see that they all share a k, right? I don't know how to factor when there's a k cubed. Usually it says k squared. So they all share a k, so let's pull out a k. And then again, remember, we're going to divide our numbers, our coefficients. We also divide the variables, but when we do that, remember our exponent rules, we actually subtract the variables or the exponents on the variables. So 2 divided by 2 is 1. K, 3 minus 1 is 2. 22 divided by 2 is 11. 2 minus 1 is just 1k. 60 divided by 2 is 30, and then k divided by k, or 1 minus 1 is 0, so that's gone. So now make our t-chart, and we know how to factor this. We're looking for numbers that multiply to get 30 and add to get 11. So we're going to leave the 2k, and we're still going to end up with our two binomial factor pairs. It's not 1 and 30, 2 and 15, 3 and 10. It's 5 and 6. So it would be k. Order here doesn't matter. I could put k plus 5 first, or I could write k plus 6 first. But make sure that 2k, that greatest common factor that we pulled out in the beginning, is out in front. Let's go to this question. So I don't know how to factor if I have a 5 out in front. So let's see, 5, 10, 20. They're all divisible by 5. So I'm going to factor out the 5. 10 divided by 5 is 2. 20 divided by 5 is 4. So we're looking for numbers that multiply to get multiply to get 4 and add to get 2. 1 and 4, 2 and 2. If we add these, we get 5. If we add these, we get 4. If we make them negative, we get -5 and -4. So this question is from the book, okay, because the book likes to trick us sometimes, and this cannot be factored any further. So we are done here, which I think that I took those questions out last week. But this can't be factored any further. Okay, on our note sheet, you're going to see factoring ax squared plus bx plus c, and it says first look to factor out a greatest common factor, and then factor what is left using the guess and check method, which is that t-chart. Your answer is going to include that GCF that we pulled out, and then our 2 binomial factors. Okay, so if we're looking at this first one, you should find this on your note sheet. Think, what is the greatest common factor? What can we factor out or pull out? What goes into 3, 21, and 36? They're all divisible by 3. And they don't share a variable, so I can't pull out an x. So we're going to leave it. Remember, we need to divide our coefficients, divide our numbers. So 21 divided by 3 is 7. 36 divided by 3 is 12. And then we ignore the original question, and when we factor, we need to focus on numbers that multiply to get 12, that's our new number, and add to get 7. So come up with 2 numbers that multiply to get 12 and add to get 7. So we get a +3 and a +4. And this whole thing is our answer here. So 3's out in front, that's the GCF, and then we have our 2 binomials. And the order of those binomials doesn't matter. Okay, so again, this one's on our note sheet. Let's look at 2, 10, and 12. What can we factor out? 2 is the greatest common factor, and I don't know how to factor with v cubed, so they all share a v. 2 divided by 2 is 1. v3 minus 1 is 2. Right? Divide our coefficients, subtract the exponents. 10 divided by 2 is 5. V squared minus one of them is 1v left over. 12 divided by 2 is 6, and v1 minus 1 is 0. V divided by v cancels each other out. So now you're looking for numbers that multiply to get that -6 and add to get the -5. I know that one factor has to be positive and one factor has to be negative, because I need to multiply to get a -6. So positive 1 minus 6 gives us that negative 5. So v plus 1, v minus 6. A lot of students try to use 2 and 3 to make a combination of 5. But one has to be positive, one has to be negative, so this would not work. So that's our final answer. So now we're going to do a little bit of practice with these questions.